It was the last day of senior year, and everyone was in that bittersweet mood, half celebrating, half realizing we'd never all be together again. I was one of the kids who actually liked taking photos, so I brought my old Canon DSLR to school to capture some memories. Throughout the day, I went around taking random shots in classrooms, the cafeteria, even the hallways where lockers were already being cleaned out. Around lunchtime, I noticed something weird. In a few of the pictures, there was this older-looking man in the background. At first I thought maybe he was a substitute or someone's parent picking up paperwork, but something about him looked off. His clothes were outdated, like early 2000s outdated, and he was always facing directly toward the camera, even when the photos from across the hall. I didn't think too much of it until later that night, when I was uploading the pictures to my laptop. My stomach dropped when I zoomed in on one shot of my friend group by the vending machines. Behind us, through the classroom window, the same man stood outside, pressed up against the glass, watching us. His expression wasn't angry or smiling. It was just blank, emotionless, like he didn't even realize he was being photographed. I asked a few friends if they noticed anyone strange hanging around that day, but nobody had. The security guards didn't mention any visitors either. The next morning, I showed the photo to my mom. She frowned immediately, then said something that made my heart stop. She told me she recognized him. Apparently, he was a teacher at that same school years ago, a photography teacher who went missing after hours one night in 2003. The story was that he stayed late grading projects, then never came home. His car was still in the parking lot. They never found him. I laughed nervously and said maybe it was just someone who looked like him, but my mom didn't seem convinced. I went back to check the photos again, but this time, every single one that had him in it was completely blank. Just white space. The rest of the album was fine, except for those few photos. Gone. Erased somehow. That summer, I went back to the school to pick up my transcript. When I popped out front, I noticed something sitting on the curb by the front door. It was a dusty yearbook from 2003. Out of curiosity, I opened it. On the staff page was the same man, Mr. Kessler. Photography. His black and white headshot looked exactly like how he appeared in my photos. Not aged. A single day. It was the final day of 8th grade, and everyone was losing their minds with excitement. The last bell rang, and 100 kids ran out into the parking lot, yelling, hugging, and tossing notebooks into the air. I remember getting on my bus and feeling that weird mix of freedom and nostalgia, that moment where the whole summer stretched out in front of you. Normally, my bus was packed, but that day only a handful of us were riding since most parents had already picked their kids up early. The driver was a woman I didn't recognize. She wasn't our usual driver, Mr. Collins, who everyone loved. She looked about 50, short hair, pale skin, and she didn't talk much. I figured maybe it was just a substitute. As the bus pulled out, I noticed we were taking a slightly different route. Nothing crazy, just turning down streets we usually didn't. At first, I thought maybe she was dropping off someone new. But when we passed the same old church twice, I realized something was wrong. I went up and asked her if she knew where she was going. She didn't answer right away, just kept driving with this blank stare. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded distant, like she was half asleep. She said, "Almost home." That phrase hit me weird, because it wasn't something a bus driver would say. I turned to the other kids. Only 3 were left, and they looked just as freaked out as I was. The bus slowed down on a dirt road I'd never seen before. There were no houses, no lights, just trees. The driver parked and turned off the engine. It was completely silent except for the ticking of the cooling bus motor. Then, without saying a word, she stood up and started walking toward the back of the bus, where we were. That's when I noticed something on her uniform. The name patch didn't say the District S name it said. Red Valley School District. That school closed down 10 years earlier after a fire killed several students. Everyone in town knew about it. My stomach dropped. Before she reached us, the kid sitting nearest to the emergency exit yanked it open and jumped out. We all followed, running into the woods until we found a road. A passing car stopped and picked us up. We told the driver everything. When the police went to check that area, they didn't find any bus, no tracks, nothing. I stopped taking the bus after that. But sometimes, when I walk home late and the streets are quiet, I swear I still hear the sound of an old diesel engine rumbling behind me. Even when the rest, nothing there. I went to a small high school in upstate New York, one of those buildings that has been around since the 1960s. The halls smelled like floor wax and pencil shavings, and every locker was covered in decades of scratches and stickers from students who came before us. My last day of junior year was quiet. Finals were done, teachers were cleaning up, and everyone was just waiting for the final bell. My friend Evan and I decided to hang around after dismissal to help a teacher move some boxers. On our way out, we noticed one of the lockers at the far end of the hallway was slightly open, just a crack. It was weird because that section had been sealed off for years. Half the lockers didn't even work anymore. But when I tugged on the handle, it clicked open easily. Inside was a stack of old notebooks, a single Polaroid photo, and a jacket that looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. The photo showed a group of students smiling outside the same school, but the picture looked old, like late 80s. On the back, someone had written, "Last day, 1989. The jacket had a name stitched inside the collar, M. Torre. I didn't recognize it, so I showed it to our teacher, Mr. Daniels. His face immediately dropped when he saw the name. He said, quietly, "That locker shouldn't even be open." He told us that back in 1989, a girl named Maria Torres went missing after the last day of school. They found her backpack in the field behind the gym, but never found her. Her locker, that exact one, had been welded shut after her disappearance because students kept leaving notes and flowers there. I laughed, nervously, thinking he was just trying to freak us out. But when we looked back down the hall, the locker was closed again. No sound, no movement. Just shut. I tried to open it again, but the handle wouldn't budge. It was sealed tight. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the photo. I still had it in my bag. Around uno alto m, I woke up to a soft clink sound from across my room, the sound of metal shifting. My backpack was on the floor. The photo was gone. The next morning, I went back to school. The building was mostly empty except for janitors. When I walked past that same hallway, there was a single Polaroid taped to my locker door. It wasn't the old one. It was new. The picture was of me and Evan, taken from behind, standing in front of that open locker the day before. The handwriting on the back said, "Last day, finally free."